That's what I hate about you as a person. Don't you feel embarrassed saying something like that about your own daughter?
Shut up. If you have any complaints, divorce. Leave.
I had reached my limit. I couldn't be with this man any longer.
Fine, let's get divorced.
My husband seemed to be waiting for this moment. He happily pulled out divorce papers bag. My name is Elisa. I'm 37-year-old housewife. I live together with my husband, Joe, daughter Mary. My husband and I used to work together at the same company, but I left my job after we got married. I gave birth shortly after and have been spending my days taking care of the baby. When Joe and I dated, he was a very nice person. But once we got married, he became a completely different person. He started acting like the king of the house. Clean up better. It's your responsibility to take Car as her mother. Don't bother me. He would say things like that to me time. Of course, I was unhappy, but I could take Mary and leave. My husband's salary was good, so I convinced myself that as long as he had money, I could handle this. I fooled myself like that and stayed with him. A few times, I tried to assert myself. I would suggest we go out on trips as a family or go out for dinner somewhere. I put effort into making sure our family has quality time together. But my husband would say,
I want to rest at home. That's a waste of money anyway.
and completely reject all of my ideas. Joe didn't act that way only to me, put no effort into talking with Mary. Apart from acting like he was king of the house, he seemed to stop caring about his appearance. Joe never made any efforts with our and I. Some time passed. I turned 43 years. Our daughter started her third year on school. Just recently, Mary had a brightly colored Barbie backpack. She was focused on her high school exams. Since my husband was a loner, Mom had more opportunities to talk to each other. Thanks to that, we became very close, shared almost everything with each. She would talk to me about what was at school as well as her thoughts future. There was a private high school she went to, so she came to me for advice, but the person who would be paying her tuition would be her dad. So, I told her.
You should also talk to your dad about this.
Mary made a face that showed she really didn't want to, but when her dad came home from work, she told him her plans.
Dad, it's about the high school I want to attend.
Do what you want.
Huh?
My husband didn't ask or care about what school Mary wanted to apply to. I was sick and tired of him. With a bored look on her face, marry me,
It's okay if I don't talk to Dad again, right?
she said. She passed the entrance exams for the course she wanted, and she seems to enjoy school every day. Around that time, Joe, who had been ghost until then, suddenly began
Hey, you're a housewife, so why are you housework? There's so much dust on all the shelves. You always cook the same food all the time. I'm tired of your cooking.
I was shocked to suddenly have this happen to me, so I was at a loss for what to do next. Joe started nitpicking everything I did, constantly insulting me. If I spoke back to him, his face would turn red and he'd yell at me. I didn't want to deal with him, so listening to him. But one day, our daughter couldn't take it anymore, and she began angrily counting down to Dad.
If you have so much to say about doing housework, why don't you just do it yourself? Mom makes breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, right? She even makes lunch boxes for us to school and work. She's so busy that she doesn't have time to learn new recipes, does she? Why don't you try cooking all this for once? The dust on the shelves that you mentioned earlier. Mom is too short to reach that high. If it bothers you that much, as a man, you should clean it yourself.
Mary spits out disses like a freestyling rapper. Seeing how Mary suddenly said this made my heart skip a beat. Like a coward, Joe then turned and attacked me.
You've been spoiling her so much that she's grown up to not even respect her father.
How could you call her a thing? That's what I hate about you. Are you not ashamed of saying something like that about your own daughter?
Shut up. If you have any complaints, divorce.
My husband seemed like he was waiting for this moment. He happily pulled out divorce paper bag.
Here, sign them quickly.
You were really prepared for this.
I've been wanting to divorce you for now. Yes, I can finally break up with you. I'm so happy.
Seeing my husband like that, I couldn't help but feel bad. Even if it was for our daughter's sake, could I stay married to this guy?
You will have to pay me half of your property.
Yeah, I know. Sign the papers already.
I filled out my portion of the document, handed it back to my husband.
In that case, pack your bags and leave.
I get it. Mary, let's go.
When I called out to Mary, she said that shocked me.
I'm not leaving. Let Dad take custody of me.
I couldn't understand. Didn't she hate her dad? Hadn't we talked a lot and become friends? Did I just one-sidedly think that Ma was close?
Mary, why?
Well, I'm used to living in this home. It's near my high school, and I definitely don't want to transfer to a new school.
In that case, I'll rent an apartment school.
No, it's okay. Like I said, I'm used to living here.
I never imagined that Mary wouldn't me, so I was deeply shaken. Joe seemed to feel the same way.
Why? Kids normally go with their moms. Weren't you too close? Go with your mom?
Shut up. I'm the one who gets to decide, right? I've decided to live here with you.
No way.
Mom, yeah, 11, help you pack your bags.
What do you mean?
Mary pulled me into the bedroom. When we got to the room, Mary began to whisper into my ear.
This is all part of my plan, please.
What was my daughter thinking? Though I was confused, I calmed myself and decided to trust Mary. I left the house and went to my pair home. A few days later, Mary came over to grandparents' home and explained her me in detail. I have to admit, it was a good plan. To think that a high school student could create something like this. Even though she was my daughter, it still scared me. Joe and I's divorce was finalized, and I received half of the property. He got custody of Mary, but since I was a stay-at-home mom and didn't make any money, he had to pay child support. The first stage of Mary's plan was, the truth is, Mary happened to see walking on the street together with woman. When she told me, I hired a private investigator and collected proof that he had been having an affair. I was able to claim alimony from Joe Lover thanks to that. The two of them paid me quite a compliment. Joe didn't expect that I knew about the affair. He was really surprised. The reason Mary wanted her dad to custody of her and to stay in that because she wanted to scare away her lover. Mary was in high school, so she wasn't taking care of herself, and that love was enough for Joe to make him break me. But Mary knew that if she was around, she would be a distraction. And just as Mary had planned, Joe was angry with him that he hadn't kept his promise to chase away his daughter, and she disappeared. Shortly after moving in with my pair found a job. I'm a certified bookkeeper and have been working with an accountant for many years. So a company hired me as their accountant. I got a 2-bedroom apartment so that Mary could come over whenever she wanted. She soon started coming over to visit and slept over almost every night. After sleeping over, she'd go direct to school the next day. Because of that, my ex-husband Joe had no one to do the housework for him, so he had to live in his big home all alone. The home soon became full of dust. I was the one who had always cooked before, so he started eating very unhealthy. He ate instant noodles and fast food every day. He didn't even know which day was trash day. He would miss the trash pickup day, so his home became full of foil wrappers and the smells of random food. That was the second stage of my dad's plan. She chased away his lover and now wanted to do housework for him. This whole plan was meant to make GC feel how much I had supported him until now. It finally hit him, and 3 months after divorced, Joe called me crying.
Save me. The house is a mess.
Oh, what happened?
There's no one to do the housework or cleaning at all. I'm eating horribly for now, and even my health is suffering.
You're forcing Mary to live like that?
She's really rebellious and almost comes home. I don't even know if she's gonna...
You have custody of her, so take Carp.
But I didn't take custody of her because of that. I don't know what she's thinking.
I felt like laughing, but I did hold myself back.
It's hard to understand the feelings of a girl going through puberty. Anyway, do your best as a single.
What do you mean?
I hung up the phone, hearing his voice talking so meekly relieved. 405. Thanks to our daughter, Joanne, we now understand how important and difficult housework can be. I have to admit, Mary really came up great plan. I will buy her anything she wants as a present. Afterwards, Joe paid a lot of money a maid to clean his entire home. He called his lover and told her he was not at home. So it seems that his lover had moved in with him. I was thinking it was about time to back, but this was also part of her. One day after finishing school, she went to her father's office's reception desk.
Dad's lover began living in our home, so I can't go back there anymore. I've come here so that he can give to pay rent.
Mary said that directly to Joe's oft receptionist. The receptionist was speechless. Joe rushed out to pull Mary away, but it was already too late. In no time, bad rumors spread around workplace. Joe hadn't told his colleagues about the real reason for his divorce. They all assumed it was because of his affair. He became very self-conscious. He told me he couldn't handle taking Mary and asked me to take her instead. I agreed to take custody of Mary, and he began paying me child support. Mary and I had already been living since long before I got custody of lives. Didn't change all that much, but the two of us were very happy with the success of Mary's plan. We cooked together, went out shopping together, and lived happily together. Mary has set her sights on a university degree, and I'll do her best to continue to support herself while pursuing it.
Do you not understand what I'm saying? You're really stupid. How long are you going to keep using money? You parasite! Get out of my sight!
My mother-in-law said that and drove me away. By now, I had realized that reasoning was useless, so I decided to follow instructions and leave. My name is Sophie. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. I've been married to my husband, Jim, for years now. We don't have kids yet, but we both work full-time and make enough money to travel, eat at nice restaurants, and enjoy a happy life together. I currently work from home and do almost all of my job remotely. Because of that, I took on most of the housework and allowed Jimmy to focus on his job. Still, Jimmy helps me out a lot on the weekends. We live a very balanced and fair married life. I met my husband at a matchmaking party. His kind smile attracted me immediately. We began dating after the party and later got married. Even after we got married, Jim's smile continued to melt away all of my worries. But even in our happy married life, we weren't without problems. Our biggest problem was my mother's health. My husband's family ran a restaurant. My deceased father-in-law opened the shop 15 years ago. It grew in popularity since then, and there are many locations all across. Thanks to that, when I first met my mother-in-law, she was dressed from head to toe in brand name clothes. I had a strong impression that she was wearing the clothes because she actually liked them, but just because they were expensive, they didn't seem to suit her at all. For the lack of a better word, it felt like she was living a new money lifestyle. I met my mother-in-law just before I got married, and she seemed to dislike me.
As long as my son's wife is in the house and doesn't cause any problems, anyone will do. But it still seems he wasn't very one. You're working now, but if you get the future, please don't assume that give you a job at the restaurant. I have a feeling that you'll be unlucky in business.
The fact that my mother-in-law said this, even though it was our first time meeting, was quite shocking to me. Jimmy scolded her, so she went quiet, never changed her opinion about me. I couldn't help but think she was a person. In order to lead a successful restaurant chain, you need to have a personality. At least my husband was on my side. And I never considered working at the restaurant if I lost my job. So even if she said that to me, I didn't really care. My husband apologized for his mother's behavior so many times and told me that he had only seen her at formal family events, weddings, and funerals. Jimmy's mother ran the restaurant with her relatives, so she didn't rely on Jimmy. In general, it seemed like Jimmy wasn't all too fond of his mother either. She was usually kind to her son, but she didn't go well with the business scene. She acted like a completely different person. When it came to Jimmy's future, his father would give him advice, but his mother would only nag him. So Jimmy didn't like being with his mother, and when he started university, he began living on his own. Of course, he was grateful to his dad since, thanks to the success of their business, they had enough money to send him to university. Thanks to that, Jimmy is now working for a decent company, and he says he wants to pay his parents back for their support. But other than that, he found his Moe annoying, so he didn't want to deal often. Since Jimmy said all that, after our meeting, I didn't meet my mother-in-law even once. I'm sure that one of the reasons why I hadn't met was also that Jimmy and have kids yet. Thanks to that, Jimmy and I lived a happy married life for a while. But recently, there have been issues at my mother-in-law's restaurant. The root of the problem is my mother's bad attitude towards me. Even if someone wasn't the owner of a restaurant, they would still eat there if the food was good. But now, with the popularity of social media, reviews have become very important in running a business. Her bad attitude when dealing with has become a main topic in all the reviews of her restaurant online. Her personality was bad. The way she spoke was sloppy. She spilled soup on the table, which was too busy. When her bitterness showed, they lost their appeal. This sort of bad comments are all over online. The other restaurants in the chain going downhill. The taste of the food was now even worse than prepackaged meals. Reviews like that kept coming in as time people stopped visiting the restaurant. But my mother-in-law would just blame young people these days and her management methods. The other stores began to fall apart one by one until the main branch was also on the brink of bankruptcy. My mother-in-law had lost all hope. Though it was unusual for her, my mother-in-law suddenly appeared at
Jimmy? Help me.
If you keep going like this, the bus won't last. I told you before, didn't I? You can't be so arrogant. You know what they say, the customer always right. If you treat customers so poorly, they're against you. But you didn't listen to me back then, did you? To tell you the truth, you brought yourself. You should take this chance to reflect on yourself. I'm sorry, but even if you ask me for help, there's nothing I can do.
Hearing those words from my husband's mother, she fell to her knees. To think my kind husband could say such a severe thing. But he said that to his mother, who was concerned about her. He was being so strict because he won. Seeing Jimmy like that, I once again to myself, how wonderful he is. My mother-in-law gave up and went home. But a month later, she showed up again. At this point, she looked like a mess. not wearing any brand name clothing or accessories.
Please. I sold all my brand name goods but can't pay off my debts. I sold the car as well and there's still some to pay. Please, save me. You are the only person I can turn to.
My mother-in-law got down on her knees and begged Jimmy. Jimmy stood with his arms crossed, what he should do. I didn't like my mother-in-law at first, but seeing her like this made me feel like I could help her.
Why don't you send your mother money every month, Jimmy?
My mother-in-law was also surprised and lifted her head to look at me.
Sophie, is that okay with you?
Yeah, it is. And didn't you say you wanted to pay parents back for paying for your education?
Is Jimmy really?
Well, yeah, I did say that.
Jimmy, please. I will work hard to pay off my loans so that I can afford my living expenses. Please help me with this.
My mother-in-law got down on her hands and knees again. Eventually, my husband agreed to sup mother. He would send her $750 a month and transfer her $1,100 to add to that. Jimmy told me that I didn't need to send much, but I wanted my mother-in-law to be able to pay off her debts and return to a normal life as soon as possible. I thought that after experiencing this, my mother-in-law would fix her arrogant attitude. Anyway, I had extra income apart from what I earned from my full-time job. That was from real estate. Actually, I've been studying stocks investments for a while now and have a portfolio. With that money, I bought an apartment I had been renting out. As I made more money from stocks, I bought another apartment, which I also decorated. Overall, I made nearly $750,000 a year. So I didn't have to worry about money. Of course, I kept this a secret from my mother-in-law. So in order to support her, I sent money to send to her. My mother-in-law was very grateful and thankful.
Jimmy, thank you so much. Thanks to you, my life has become stable again.
Jimmy also seemed happy to hear that. We hoped that our mother-in-law would find a job and gradually pay back her debts. 1 month passed, but she still hadn't found herself a new job. And then an even bigger problem arose. My mother-in-law started to regularly stay over during the week.
I can barely afford food. Sophie, can you make me something to...
My mother-in-law would come over in the afternoon and ask me to make her a cup of tea. At first, she would go home after fire eating, but recently she's been hanging around on the couch after, and even she goes as far as to ask me for dessert.
I'm also working, so it's tough to stay up for this long.
Her presence began affecting my work, so I had to say something. My mother-in-law laughed.
What work? You're always at home, aren't you? If you want to lie, at least come up with something more convincing.
She replied to me. Maybe she's been working in the residential business so long that she doesn't know how to do remote work. I explained everything to her in detail, but she doesn't understand technology, so she didn't get what I was telling her. No matter how much I tried to reason with her, she wouldn't listen to me and kept on asking for more.
Sophie, there's no more tea. 405. Go and buy some. You don't have any snacks? Crackers great? You really are a useless wife. You're a housewife, but you can't get enough of it.
My mother-in-law would say things that were untrue and blame me. She said she was going to work to pay off her debts and that she just couldn't find a job. But instead, she would spend all day house and only quickly leave right Jimmy comes home. I'm sure that she feels guilty to Jay. He's the one who sends her money. Or maybe she just doesn't want him, whether she's found a job yet. But I had reached the limits of I was the one giving her most of the money every month, so why did she have to do this to me? I stood in front of my mother-in-law.
Please, leave.
My mother-in-law was momentarily shocked, but she didn't seem to expect that I would do it. but her face quickly went red and to yell.
How could you say that to your own mother? You're just a housewife who relies on her husband's salary.
How many times do I have to tell you? I'm not a housewife.
Enough with those delusions.
My mother-in-law screamed. She then made a face as if she had something.
That's it. I just have to kick you out. Jimmy sends me such little money, Eve, because you're here.
That $18.50 you receive every month, us send you that money together. What do you mean it's little?
Do you really think that's enough, F? It's too little.
Was at a loss for words. I had to keep my calm. It seemed as if she had not stopped living a lavish lifestyle, despite being broke. I was sick and tired of her. My mother-in-law looked at me coldly.
Hey, how long do you plan on spacing? Pack your bags. Don't you understand what I'm saying? How long will you keep using my son?
My mother-in-law said that and tried to take me away. By now, I had realized that reasoning was useless, so I decided to follow instructions and leave.
Fine. I will pack my bags and leave.
My mother-in-law's face looked victorious.
My life is finally secure. I'm sure if I was living alone with the first place, this wouldn't have.
I left my mother-in-law behind packing a suitcase.
In that case, I will go away as quick possible.
My mother-in-law looked satisfied at home. That night, I explained everything to. He was overwhelmed with anger.
Sophie, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Thank you for letting us know that you haven't changed. Isn't it good that we realized that we shouldn't try anymore?
Jimmy and I both packed up our things from the house.
What happened? Have you left the house? I wanted to call you about the money that you send me every month, but I have been busy and haven't been able to until now.
I've already left the house, so, Dawn, you won't have to see me ever again.
My mother-in-law sounded very happy that
my son finally managed to get rich. The money Jimmy sends me will increase my life.
She spoke happily. I let out a sigh and retorted,
You've said so many mean things too, calling me a parasite. You couldn't be more wrong.
My mother-in-law yelled back.
You're acting like this again? What can I even do with you? Well, you're not my son's wife anymore. I hope that you live a poor and lone from now on.
How wrong could she be? But it's fine. Let her think that I'm a bad person. Shortly after, I ended the call.
What is it this time?
My mother-in-law began panicking as she questioned me.
What's going on? I went to Jimmy's apartment and Sam was living there. Do you know what happened between you two? Where is he?
She asked me. My husband was next to me and overheard my mother, so I handed him the phone.
I've been with Sophie this whole time.
Jimmy, why are you with her? And why did you stop sending me money?
Well, you tried to insult and kick of our home, right? Even if you are my mother, I cannot forgive myself for hurting my precious wife. Sophie tried explaining to you about many times, but you never listened. Sophie was actually the one who sent of that money. It seems you didn't realize.
Ha, are you serious?
Sophie wanted you to be able to pay debts quickly, so she'd give you 1 month, but you'd call her useless and make her feel like she was nothing. I won't send money to someone like, sorry, but I'm cutting off my tie. Pay your debts yourself.
I didn't know Sophie made that much. And then send me money again.
It's too late. Give up.
Jimmy said that and hung up the phone. I then blocked my mother-in-law's number. She never tried to get in touch with us again. Jimmy heard from his relatives. Later, though, his mother sold her house. Esh wasn't able to pay off her debts. She's now living in a rundown apartment working part-time. She's living a very meager life in order to pay off her debts. She tried asking her relatives for help, but they had always been arrogant towards her. So now she's completely alone and menial life. She got what she deserved. Jimmy and I are still both working full-time jobs, but we're living the life we've always wanted. Our time together is really precious. I never expected to have a child, but now that I do, I consider it a gift from heaven. I am grateful that I can raise the child with the man I love.